10 huge EastEnders spoilers for next week. What's coming up in Walford? Here's our roundup of all the biggest moments coming up in Albert Square. Bit 1. Nigel injures Phil. Phil gets concerned about Nigel when he spots his friend going outside barefoot, and he later finds that Nigel has caused chaos in the kitchen. The situation escalates quickly when the pair end up fighting over a pan of boiling water. Things clearly ended badly, as Kat later finds Phil injured and realizes that something is wrong. She urges her ex-husband to be honest about Nigel's dementia and how he is currently coping. They have an honest conversation, and Kat finds out that Phil is exhausted and out of his depth as Nigel's carer. She suggests that he should get some extra support, but Phil refuses. 2. Elaine and George clash. Yolande is secretly planning a party for Patrick's 85th birthday, so he heads to the Vic to ask if the surprise bash can be held there. Linda is overwhelmed by her workload at the pub and is reluctant, but Elaine overrules her and agrees to host the celebration. However, after accepting this task, it isn't long before Elaine leaves Linda alone behind the bar again. George notices and steps in to help, but Elaine is furious when she spots him working with Linda. It becomes clear that there's no chance of Elaine and George reuniting, and George later warns her that his solicitor says he could have a claim on the Vic. 3. Nicola has a plan. Nicola and Teddy are concerned about Barney, after finding out that the teen failed a chemistry exam because of stress, to try and cheer up her son. Nicola decides to bring back their family half-Christmas tradition, a day they celebrate in June. But Harry is furious and even invites Zack along to the party, while Nicola decorates the house. Teddy gives her some brutal honesty, and Barney and Harry arrive home to find her destroying the living room. 4. Denzel shuts out Joel. Denzel agrees to babysit the square's younger children on the night of Patrick's birthday party, and in return, Yolande allows him to have some friends over. He invites Tommy, which pleases Jean. But Joel is also keen for an invite so he can get closer to his latest crush Amy. But Denzel makes it clear that Joel isn't welcome, and later things get worse when Amy dismisses his attempts to flirt with her. 5. Jean questions. Kat is hurt about Alfie not staying in contact with her while he's away, but Jean says she still hasn't forgiven her for going into business with Kathy and Harvey. Later. Relations break down even further when Jean questions why Kat is spending so much time with Phil, though Kat insists that she's just worried about him as a friend. Jean keeps Patrick distracted while Yolande organises the party, and she tells him about her feud with Kat. Patrick encourages her to make amends, but will she take his advice? 6. Nigel upsets Lexi. Nigel offers to help Lexi write a story as part of her homework for school, but things get tough for him when the pair begin talking about the past. When Phil arrives home, he soon realizes that Nigel has got Lexi confused with his daughter Claire. As Phil struggles to calm the situation, Kat reiterates that he needs to accept help. Later in the week, Denise reminds Phil to look after himself, as well as Nigel. Will Phil listen to his ex-partners? 7. Elaine causes carnage. Elaine goes all out for Patrick's party, and he's thrilled even if the Truman Fox women aren't too pleased. Meanwhile, Denzel plays host at home and distracts the younger kids with a film, while Joel manages to blag his way in using alcohol. Denzel and Joel later head to the Vic, where Elaine gets carried away and gives the teens a glass of punch each. The pair secretly steal entire jugs of punch to take home, but they take their eye off the ball and later are horrified to discover that Raymond, Bert and Ernie have drunk the alcohol. The next day, Linda is horrified by Elaine's actions and is comforted by Johnny. At the hospital, worried mothers Denise and Kat discover that Elaine served the underage teens alcohol. Will Elaine face consequences? 8. Vicky gets suspicious. Felix is keen for Bernie to approve of his partner Johnny, but he remains unaware that Johnny helped cover up Keanu's murder. Denise is scared about this, as if Johnny doesn't win Bernie over. The shocking past might resurface. Elsewhere, Vicky stumbles across some strange invoices while checking the Panesar family's business accounts. She raises this with Bernie, but her concerns are quickly brushed aside. 9. Teddy compromises, having tidied up her mess. Nicola welcomes her guests to her Christmas party. Billy and Honey get involved. But the event takes a turn when Zack arrives. Harry feels smug when Nicola kicks Zack out, while Teddy rushes after an upset Barney. During an honest chat, Teddy tells Barney he won't stand in his way if he wants to get to know his biological dad. Later, Nicola and Barney's meal is interrupted by Zack, and more drama ensues. That evening, Nicola and George bond over their relationship breakdowns. Could this be the start of a new romance? 10. Bernie faces questions, while Ravi shows off his flash new car to Priya. Vicky is still concerned about the invoices she came across. She flags this with Bernie again to no avail, so Ross suggests that she speaks to Ravi instead. It turns out that Ravi knows nothing about this, and Vicky has made him suspicious. As a result of this, Ravi and Suki confront Bernie about the strange invoices. Will they get to the truth?
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của EastEnders Spoiler TV. Xin chào các bạn.
Kat chilled to the bone in EastEnders as she makes discovery about Tommy. Kat Moon has made a chilling discovery about son Tommy in EastEnders. As viewers of the BBC One soap have seen, the youngster has become entwined in a dangerous friendship with newcomer Joel Marshall. He'd arrived from Australia earlier in the year alongside Dad Ross and Ross's partner Vicky Fowler, bringing with them a ton of baggage, and not in the literal sense. It soon transpired that Joel had upskirted a pupil in his class, and her family had ordered him to leave the country in exchange for their silence. They'd also accepted a hefty $50,000 sum. The teen showed no signs of changing, recording himself sleeping with Avani Nandrahat and introducing Tommy to pornography. More recently, Joel showed his new mate videos from an influencer who spoke about women in a derogatory manner. Tommy was clearly spooked by the words, and with Kat and Alfie uncovering sexually explicit videos on the family laptop, he knew that it was time to refrain from hanging around with Joel. In yesterday's episode, he purposely skipped school so that they wouldn't have to bump into one another, feigning an illness. He was stunned to see Joel arrive under the pretense of being his study partner. Kat went out to work, and the lad soon began watching dodgy videos again. Joel then branded his mum a slapper and said he'd always been made to feel unwanted, especially down under where his new schoolmates had mocked his British accent. Tommy told him that not everyone was like that, prompting Joel to want to explore more of London. However, when the lads were on the tube home, he exacted yet another sex offence on a fellow passenger. In tonight's instalment, Tommy rushed home and didn't want to open up to Kat about what had happened. She encouraged him to open up. But after making a disparaging comment about a woman's place being in the kitchen, she began to wonder if something more sinister was at play. When she asked about Joel, Tommy stayed silent. It became obvious by his silence that her worst fears had been confirmed. However, when she reached out to husband Alfie for help, he was nowhere to be found. Tommy used a tracker on his dad's phone to find him, and Kat raced over. What she didn't realise was that inside the flat, she was her estranged daughter Zoe.
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của EastEnders Spoiler TV. Xin chào các bạn.
EastEnders confirms Christmas storyline as all hell breaks loose for Key family. Christmas may still be 6 months away, but EastEnders is set to kick off a surprise festive storyline next week, amid more drama for the Mitchell family. Recent weeks have seen the clan's lives as they knew them were blown apart. After it was revealed Nicola Mitchell murdered her son Harry's girlfriend Shireen. This triggered a series of explosive events that culminated in another of Nicola's big secrets being uncovered, as her younger son Barney discovered that Zack Hudson is his biological father, not Teddy Mitchell. While the family have tried to get back on track, Barney is still struggling with his paternity bombshell, and the stress causes him to fail a chemistry exam next week. Wanting to cheer him up, a concerned Nicola hits upon the idea of resurrecting their family half-Christmas tradition. where they celebrate in June. Harry is scathing about the idea and later stirs the pot by inviting Zack along, lying that Barney wants him there. As Nicola goes all out to decorate, Teddy delivers some brutal home truths, prompting her to trash the room just as Barney and Harry arrive. The celebrations eventually get back on track, but there's a shock in store when Zack arrives, having caused chaos. Harry revels as a furious Nicola throws Zack out, as Barney also rushes out after Teddy chases after him. They have a deep conversation during which he promises to support Barney if he wants to get to know Zack. Nicola also tries to build bridges with Barney by taking him for a meal at Walford East, but another run-in with Zack causes yet more tension. Is there a world in which Barney and Zack can have a relationship? Or has Nicola got more tricks up her dastardly sleeve?
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của EastEnders Spoiler TV. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn.
Is Michelle Ryan leaving EastEnders for good as Zoe Slater exits? Zoe Slater made a hasty departure in EastEnders after a week 2 decades in the making, claiming that she has done something so bad that it warrants her disappearing for good. The much-loved Walford icon staged her long-awaited comeback on Monday, June 16th, appearing on screen for the first time since 2005. Staying with Stacey Slater in a flat in London, it became apparent very quickly that Zoe wasn't in a good place, with our Stace concerned enough to notify Alfie Moon. Alfie wasn't keen on the prospect of keeping Cat Moon in the dark, but Zoe urged him to keep stum when Cat showed up at the flat. However, Zoe was forced to hide and she subsequently made an escape, determined not to come face to face with her estranged mum. Cat's suspicions are raised, but Stacey and Alfie managed to cover their tracks. So far anyway. The question is just what is so bad that Zoe has to flee once more? Is this really her exit? Has Michelle Ryan's stint come to an end so soon? Let's take a look at what we know. Is Michelle Ryan leaving EastEnders in 2025 as Zoe Slater? If you're thinking, please don't go Zoe, it's barely been a week, then you're not alone, as I too was thinking the same thing. However, I bring you good news, with this exit simply being a temporary one. Metro understands that Zoe will return to screens, and presumably this time in Walford, later this year in a more regular captivity. One of EastEnders' most known characters ever. Zoe frequented the square for a 5-year period, appearing between 2000 and 2005. The early noughties was a particularly strong era for the popular soap, with the Slater clan at the centre of much of the drama. Zoe in particular featured in many iconic storylines during this period, from assisting Chrissy Watts and Sam Mitchell in covering up the murder of Den Watts after her affair with the Queen Vic landlord and her subsequent pregnancy reveal, to her relationship with Dennis Rickman. She had no shortage of legendary and soapy moments. She's mostly remembered for the moment that Kat confirmed she's her biological mum. The truth came to light in a showdown which prompted perhaps the most iconic dialogue exchange ever uttered in Albert Square. I am of course referring to "You ain't my mother," to which Kat replied, "Yes, I am." There are few TV moments as iconic, and hopefully we'll get many more when Zoe returns to the square later this year and, fingers crossed, reunites with Kat.
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của EastEnders Spoiler TV. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn.
EastEnders star 31 happy as she announces engagement. Former EastEnders star Elaine has confirmed she is engaged. The star portrayed the role of Ash Panesar in the show from 2019-2023. Ash is the daughter of Suki and Nish Panesar. Elaine recently updated her Instagram to reveal to her followers that her partner Max has proposed. The picture that confirmed her engagement sees Elaine sipping on a drink in Ibiza, Spain. Elaine's ring can be seen on her hand, shining in the sun. Plenty of her EastEnders friends congratulated her in the comments section. Shiva Jalota, who plays Ash's brother Vinny Balvinder, Sopal shared love for her on-screen daughter and said, "Oh my days, congratulations baby." Ash Panesar's final scenes aired after she was offered a job in Canada, much to the disgust of Dad Nish. She decided to accept, but it came after Suki used some reverse psychology to push her towards the decision. Controlling Nish was furious when he worked out what Suki had done. and took it upon himself to try and convince his daughter to stay. Ash, however, had seemingly caught on to his controlling behavior and asked him to consider giving Suki a project of her own to be in charge of.
Các bạn vừa theo dõi một sản phẩm của EastEnders Spoiler TV. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại các bạn.